Okay, so just to clear up an old question I have, the Dodgers aren't called that because the players have dodged every military draft that has come into effect. It's because the area they were from, Brooklyn, was so dense with...
Where that at?
East. Brooklyn was so dense with trolley cars that residents were known to be dodging trolleys to get around. The Brooklyn Trolley Dodgers was the original name, which eventually got changed to the Brooklyn Dodgers, which eventually got changed to a continental bounce to Los Angeles Trolley Dodgers, which isn't true, and that eventually got changed to Los Angeles Dodgers. We had trolleys over here, but nobody dodged them because they're really slow. The Trolley Dodgers weren't their first name, by the way. Before that, they were the Bridegrooms, which is a ridiculous name for a baseball team.
What?
Yeah, the Bridegrooms, named so after the marriage of one of their players. The mascot was like a bird that had to make a phone call every 20 minutes to make sure everything he was doing was okay. Marriage.
Women. Hand in the crotch.
Everything I do is gross.
Peg, you're ugly. Get over here. We're a modern family.
So after that, they went as the Brooklyn Robins during the 20s, and by the 30s, they changed their name to the Trolley Dodgers, which is a much cooler name.
Cooler than the bridegroom, which is a phrase that nobody uses anymore?
No. I think like right after they said it, they're like, no, this can't stick. I don't want to spend too much time in Brooklyn. I can't imagine anyone who would. But
no, nothing. Just forget about it.
But I have to at least give everyone listening a feeling of why it hurt so many people when they left the Dodgers.
I at least need to name every single person born in Brooklyn. Please tell us why it hurt, because I know it's affected my family very deeply.
Oh yeah, I know. I've known some people that moved to California to follow the Brooklyn Dodgers over here. That's money.
Like Piazza.
So before they are moved to Ebbets Field in 1913, the Brooklyn Dodgers, who were affectionately called Dem Bums, as I mentioned before, they were like the Bad News Bears of the National League, which is adult-sized baseball. In 1920, though, the Brooklyn Dodgers, then known as Brooklyn Robins at the time, managed to win the National League pennant. And after that, they started a 21-year-long dry season as they struggled to make any championship game.
Is the pennant the winner of the conference, or is that the big... Like, if you win the World Series, what do you win?
Trophy. I don't know.
World's best player trophy.
You're champions of the world, even though it's only in one country that plays baseball. I mean, other countries play baseball, but we only play ourselves.
Hey, we absorb the rest of them.
Japan
is a suburb of California.
The pennant is like the playoff stuff that leads to the last two teams that go to the World Series.
So then what do you win when you win the World Series?
The Stanley Cup. This is a ludicrous question. This was not something I had to learn.
This is a Chris Bridges question.
Someone explained it to me, and I was like, So who's Brooks Robinson? He's an Oriole. He's not a Dodger.
So who's on first?
The Dodgers were like the laughing stock for baseball for a long time. They were managed under the leadership of a guy named Wilbert Robinson. And for a short time, Casey Stengel, who was like one of the best baseball managers in the history of the game, he went on to lead the Yankees to many a victory. For those who don't know, much as there is Chandlerisms, which are lines that sum up the attitude of Raymond Chandler, there is like Stengelisms, which best sum up the surliness of Casey Stengel. Here's a couple of his classic Stengelisms. If anyone wants me, tell him I'm being embalmed.
Classic Stengelism.
Been in this game 100 years, but I see new ways to lose them I never knew existed before. So now during this period, the Dodgers were known for pulling boners, boneheaded plays as they were.
Go on. Very elaborately.
There was a play many people remember when Babe Herman, who was not Babe Ruth, attempted to stretch a double into a triple.
It was baby Pee Wee Herman.
And when he got to third base, he found two other players standing there with him.
Shut up! I don't want to go!
The 30s was a good time for transitions for the Trolley Dodgers, despite the fact that this was a decade where they would still be struggling. I've heard different things about their manager, Wilbert Robinson. I read that his leadership was like clown-like, but I also read that he was like one of the warmest and most jovial managers. They even referred to him as Uncle Robbie. Either way, Robinson leaves in 1931, and the Dodgers go through like a string of upsetting managers until 1938 when Larry McPhail steps up. And now McPhail makes it clear that's a very funny name.
We got to get this team to winners. Hire McPhail.
No, what is about his name? I don't get it.
What? Loser McPhail. What's the big deal? Loser Zero McPhail. I don't see how we could go wrong.
From the Never McWin family, right? So he comes aboard, and he is just not going to have any of this like wacky Dodgers and look at the stuff we do and look at all the boners we're pulling. So he upgraded Ebbets Field. He installed lights for the night games, which were a new thing. And he shattered this old gentleman's agreement between the three New York teams, and he put the Dodgers on the radio. The three teams had made this agreement that they didn't want any broadcast games on the radio because they thought it was going to hinder attendance. McPhail said, I can't hear you. The radio's too loud. It should be mentioned that on August 26, 1939, the Brooklyn Dodgers played the very first televised baseball game.
Really?
Against Cincinnati, the Reds. The Reds was a team that MacPhail had previously saved from the sports gutter. He was pretty good at this.
McWin.
You know what? I'm going to change his name today. To the county office. Under the tutelage of MacPhail and another guy named Leo DeRocher, the team began to gain the winning momentum. And in just 3 years, after a series of smart trades, they became like pennant favorites again. So by 1940, they finished second place with a solid 88-65 record. And by 1941, they found themselves breaking their 21-year struggle on the field with a 100-win, 54-loss record, winning them the National League pennant. They faced the Yankees that year at the World Series, but they lost. But it doesn't matter, though, because they had already like built up this winning momentum.
Still, they didn't win.
But they had like momentum.
Yeah, momentum is all good, but does it pay the, does it buy me my peanuts and Cracker Jacks?
Quite frankly, I don't know if I ever want to come back. God damn you. So the 40s were a great time for the Dodgers, which featured a powerhouse that was Pete Reiser, who led the league in batting, runs scored, total bases, slugging percentage, triples. They struggled some mid-decade, but they put up like a hell of a fight. 1947, Jackie Robinson, who spent his early athletic days
in Pasadena boy,
which is probably how he got so good. He was invited to play for
the water. I've always said it. It's that Pasadena water.
That clean, healthy
turns
air.
You into a star.
Does everyone know that we have the Fountain of Youth in California? It's in Pasadena. Do people know that?
Anyone who drinks the water in Pasadena can play in any league, no matter what color the skin is.
He was invited to play the Brooklyn Dodgers, 1947, breaking the color line, which people held onto so tightly. Anyone who doubted his ability quickly shut up because he was a tremendous player. He was like, just watching him was such an electric experience. Again, in 1947, the Dodgers once again met the Yankees at the World Series, and once again, the Yankees took it away from them. So now come the Dodgers of the 50s. They were something else. Them bums were proving their worth throughout the decade. One of the major factors in all of this is when the club's attorney was appointed to be the new president of the team. This was Walter O'Malley. This was in October of 1950. O'Malley, you remember from last episode, he's a gentleman who stubbornly brought the Dodgers over here. Also in 1950, we have the appearance of a long-time Dodger, a man who is still around today.
Mike Piazza.
He started when he was 4 years old. He started as a ball, and now he's a ball player.
Mikey Piazza? He started as a ball when he still had yet to be reincarnated as a human.
You got a cocoon, buddy. You got a cocoon into a big catcher. 1950. One of the most revered members of the club. At the tender age of 22, Vin Scully was brought aboard as the broadcaster along old standards Red Barber, who I always thought
The Big Bopper?
The Big Bopper, yeah. Red Barber, who was an announcer, an old-time announcer. And when he talks like this, but he doesn't like announce like that.
Wait a second. Vin Scully has been announcing for the Dodgers since 1950?
Since he was 22. Since Brooklyn.
What?
Yeah.
I had no idea. That's ridiculous.
I learned that and I thought that's amazing.
How old is he? Like 400?
He's like 400. How old would he be? Let's think about it. It's 2015. He was 22 in 1950.
He'd be like 87?
We should look it up before we continue.
Hang on, let me call Vin Scully. Siri,
how old is Vin Scully? There is no such number for that age.
87. He is 87 years old. I should probably win the pennant for quickest math, but I won't win the World Series. Yankees. The damn Yankees.
So they had Red Barber and they had Connie Desmond. Soon after Scully was taken in, Red Barber left the ball club for the Yankees, and Connie Desmond was becoming unreliable because he was a goddamn drunk, which left Scully as a primary announcer, which he still holds to this day.
Wow.
2015.
Good for him.
Good for him. 87 years old. Good for him.
My God. Does he even still have vocal cords?
He's said so many words that they could just patch it together, and he just sits there and smiles at everybody in a nice suit. Hi, how are you? How are you doing? How are you doing?
Mike Piazza.
Managers change hand again at this point, and by the early 50s, we have Chuck Dresden, and by 54, we have Walter Alston, who is described as stoic. He let the Dodgers out on a long leash, but he still held the leash. You know what I mean? Like, he had a lot of control, but he also let the players be themselves and function. Between Dresden and Alston, the Dodgers win back-to-back pennants in 52 and 53, and again in 56. The Dodgers of 53 were spectacular. They had a nickname, the Boys of the Summer, like the song. I'm going to name them. Jackie Robinson, Pee Wee Reese, Roy Campanella, Gil Hodges, Carl Furillo, Don Newcomb, Carl Erskine, Jim Gilliam, Duke Snyder, Preacher Rowe, and Clem Labine. The Boys of the Summer won a club record 105 games, kicking ass and taking names, because that's how rosters work. What?
How many games are in a baseball season?
I think it's 150 something.
My God, they missed 50 games. Them bums.
In 55, the Dodgers once again met up with the Yankees at World Series. Guess what?
The butt of a chicken.
Butt of a chicken.
Oh, no. Mm-hmm. Oh, no.
Can you believe it?
Let me at him.
Spoiler alert, the Dodgers take the World Series 2-0 from the Yankees, a spectacular feat. It should be mentioned that the next year, 56, the Dodgers and the New York Yankees once again face off at the World Series. They went 7 games. In the 5th game, Yankee pitcher Don Larson threw a no-hitter against the Dodgers, and in the 7th game, the score was 9-0 Yankees. Them damn Brooklyn bums! No matter though, in 8 of the 10 years of that decade, the Dodgers never finished lower than 2nd place while winning 913 games, the most wins in a Dodger decade in Dodger history. Dodger decade. What did I say? Once in a Dodger decade. Imagine that. Imagine over 40 years, this team built up such a strong momentum. They went from being like a laughing stock to winning the World Series against their town rivals. They broke the color line. They were a first televised team. Now imagine being like a diehard fan and sticking with them bums for as long as you can remember. They might have like sucked and lost every game, but that was your team. And when they win, that pride and loyalty was rewarded. So during this era, mid-50s, Walter O'Malley was tired of Ebbets Field. O'Malley was battling with the city manager Robert Moses over building a new ballpark for the team, but Moses wouldn't have it, and that frustrated O'Malley. The city owned Ebbets Field, so anything O'Malley wanted to change had to be cleared, and without approval to build a new park, he threatened to take his team to a city that would accommodate him. On the other side of the continent, Los Angeles County Supervisor Kenneth Hahn was looking to bring a Major League Baseball team to the area. Now, we had several minor league teams, which you discussed last time, when they were very good, but the city was looking to draw in a bigger crowd with an established team.
Fools. All we needed were angels.
We just needed to hire actors to come play ball. We would have had the biggest team in the world.
Spring in Joe E. Brown's team.
Rock Hudson slides into third.
And we're not talking about the base.
So how is serendipitous that O'Malley is looking for a ballpark he can control, and Hahn is looking for the winniest team for the city? Refer to the last episode to see how this decision wrongly put families out of home so they could play ball.
See ya in an hour and 40 minutes.
So when news hit New York, Mayor Wagner and Robert Moses made this like half-hearted effort to save the Brooklyn Dodgers from westbound intentions by offering them a ballpark on the World's Fairgrounds in Queens. But O'Malley wanted complete control of his ballpark, and if it remained there in New York, he'd have to share control because it'd still have to be approved by the city. So it was a hard decision for him because he knew he would break Brooklyn baseball fans' hearts, but he, damn it, he wanted control.
I'm trying to be a fair man. I just want complete control over all of you.
Now, Brooklyn was like used to getting its heart broken by the Dodgers, but
not like this.
But not like this. Because every year before this, they could be like, well, maybe next year, but now there wasn't like a next year. Like, this was it.
He'll always come back to me.
They're still waiting for the Dodgers to come back. They're like waiting at the airport. The Brooklyn Dodgers played their final game at Ebbets Field on September 24th. Anniversaries are coming up. 1957, with the Dodgers won 2-0 over the Pirates. After 68 seasons playing at Ebbets Field, Brooklyn was going to lose them bums to the West.
68 seasons?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Baseball's old.
68 seasons?
Yeah.
When did they start?
Like 1890s.
My God. They came over
Same
on the
players.
Mayflower, the Nino, the Pinta, and the shortstop.
We've been batting these turnips around for months now.
The Dodgers versus the Navajo.
Smallpox wins. Smallpox always wins. So Brooklyn lost them bums to the West. Very sad, and they never forgave us. To add to that, the New York Giants left the Big Apple for San Francisco.
At least we'll always have the Giants. We just have the Yankees.
Oh, God. The best team in the sport. Darn. Shut up.
Let's make another one.
What the hell's a Met? To add...
The trolley Mets. Because they met the trolley at every corner when they got hit by it.
Don't you get it? It's a Brooklyn thing.
Forget about it again.
Once again, we're talking here.
I'm trolleying here.
If you walk a batter... I'm walking here. Anyways, to add to all of this high drama, this high sports melodrama, Roy Campanella, one of the boys this summer, was paralyzed in a car accident.
Oh, no.
Many people call it the end of an era. Not Los Angeles, though. We got a baseball team. We just had to forcibly remove families from their homes. But we got Dodger dogs, so, game on. All the Dodgers came to the West and bought surfboards. So the Dodgers get to Los Angeles, but they get here like 57, 58. Dodger Stadium is like nowhere near being ready for gameplay. So in the meantime, the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum would house the Dodgers. Mm-hmm. Imagine that.
The perfectly shaped place to play baseball.
Opening day was on April 18th, 1958. The ceremony started at 10:30 in the morning on the steps of City Hall. As the Dodgers...
They marched down to the Coliseum.
Mm-hmm. They filled out all the proper paperwork. They took their seats in front of a big crowd. Senoritas from Olvera Street took off the players' caps and cracked their heads with confetti-filled eggs for good luck. Hey, it's good luck.
I've seen those confetti eggs around Olvera Street. Does that mean the Dodgers were nearby?
Yeah, that's the clue that they're close.
It's like the ectoplasm they leave behind. The Dodgers been here.
Walter O'Malley presented an autographed home plate to Mayor Norris Paulson, who, if you remember from the last episode, made it a point in his campaign to stop low-income housing project promised to Chavez Ravine because of the anti-socialist fears. Mayor Paulson bought that land later back from the federal government at a drastically reduced price with the stipulation that the land be used for a public purpose. Don't get mad at us because you voted for him. After the ceremony at City Hall, the Dodgers were paraded down Broadway in a motorcade of open cars, so this whole city could see the boys of the summer before their first game as our home team, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Concerns? Questions? Remarks?
I saw what happened to Kennedy. I'm a little concerned.
We did have a book depository very close to Broadway.
Listen to episode 1 to find out all about the book depository.
Their first game in Los Angeles was against the other New York team that is no longer a New York team, the San Francisco Giants. Pitching for us was Carl Erskine. First game in their new hometown, the Dodgers beat the Giants 6-5 before 78,672 fans at the Coliseum. Let's talk about the Coliseum as a baseball park for a moment.
I've seen the pictures.
Yeah, it's
just like a hard line cutting through.
Yeah, they're like, okay, an oval, we'll just build a funky wall here.
Triangle does not fit in oval.
I know there's no corners in an oval, but we'll just like wedge them to like a pit, like this is just the pit edge of it.
First base is going to be above third.
Like it's a great football stadium, but like it's so cavernous. The stands are so high up. If you have trouble thinking about what it looks like, think about playing baseball in a battle scene in Gladiator. To accommodate the diamond shape of a normal baseball stadium, like you were saying, they stuck home plate in one edge of it, and they installed a 42-foot high removable screen on the north side of the stadium to put boundaries for outfield. This screen was notorious, and any Dodger who played in his days has like a story about that left field screen, which was so short. And on top of that, the ballpark was tremendously deep in the right and center field.
It's like a Picasso baseball diamond.
So there were like an irregular amount of singles on the left side, and no one could hit a home run like down the. So like it had an advantage if you're right-handed or left-handed. It was very strange because it took a long time for baseball games other than the Coliseum to conform to perfect dimensions. So all the games anywhere you play are like the same, like a fair game. Because for like decades they were still struggling. Like, oh, that's too far. This is too deep.
Yeah. Like the Wrigley Field in Los Angeles.
Exactly.
Tilted in.
Yeah. 250-foot home runs to the left, 440-foot flyouts to the right. Outfielders struggling to pick up balls. There was a combination of concrete single-deck seats that went very high, no shade for the fans, which called a tremendous glare. An outfielder said once that it was an issue at times if too many fans were wearing white shirts because the sun was bouncing off them and would blind them if they're trying to catch them, if they had to look up and catch a fly ball.
It was horrible on KKK night.
That was Jackie Robinson bobblehead night, and they were not happy.
What's this?
He's a good player. That converted so many KKK members.
They tore off their hoods.
The Dodgers played at the Coliseum for 4 seasons from 58 to 61, and they had great attendance for this time. Over that period, more than 1.8 million fans watched the Dodgers play at the Coliseum.
4 seasons they played at the Coliseum?
Imagine that. Oh, okay, I'll see you next year at the Coliseum. Oh, God.
Still,
really? In 1958, they finished 7th with a 71-83 record, which is not too great. But they were playing baseball on a football field, so what do you want? They were trying their best, okay? They're in Newtown. They didn't know where to get food. No matter, though, because 1959 was the year for the Dodgers. If O'Malley and the Dodgers were wondering if they made the right move, this year would reward their vision. The Dodgers went to the World Series with Chicago, the White Sox, for 6 games. In October of that year, they won the championship against the Sox 9-3 at Comiskey Park in Chicago. Wow. Although they played in Los Angeles for a lot of those games, this was the first and only time that the World Series was played at the LA Memorial Coliseum. Good. And it was also the first World Series games that were played on the West Side. 2 young pitchers made appearances during the World Series game.
Mike Piazza.
And his Kevin Piazza, his brother.
Mike Deep Dish Piazza.
He had a strange name, but it was Italian and no one questioned it.
No one questioned it because he wasn't Irish.
Don Drysdale and Sandy Koufax. These 2 pitchers, along with many other Dodger greats,
names.
Went on to define Dodgers in the 60s. So now the boys in blue, the Dodgers not cops, have got the city behind them because they won the World Series, and they are getting situated in their new surroundings. Well, pack your bags, boys, because we're taking the game to Chavez Ravine.
Ooh,
that's right.
Haunted maybe. Fun.
That's right. 3 years after their big win, the stadium that was promised to the team was finally ready. The Dodgers will be playing at Dodger Stadium, named after them. Opening day was April 10th. Coincidence? I don't think so. Opening day, April 10th, 1962. I had previously stated that 2 million people attended the game, and you questioned it, and I said, shut up, I'm talking here. What I meant was, shut up, I'm talking here. 2 million people showed up that first year. I apologize.
Okay,
yeah.
Good. Thank
but
you.
The first game saw over 52,000 people crowded into that little stadium. They played the Cincinnati Reds.
Again.
Lost 6-3 at their new home. Welcome home, boys. Great job.
Back to your old tricks.
So glad we built this for you. Oh, there's something that I left out.
Tear it down.
Don't put that shovel down. Start burying these boys under the stadium. Opening day for Dodger Stadium, they realized too late that there was an oversight everyone had missed, which I heard was somewhat common at the time, not just like at stadiums, but when they built buildings. Dodger Stadium only had 2 drinking fountains, one for each dugout.
I thought you were going to say one for white people. So there, like no
fans had a water fountain. Wow. Like the dugouts had water fountains.
Buy beer.
That's what the conspiracy they thought. They thought that O'Malley was just trying to drive beer sales, and he was vehemently against. Like, no, I didn't. No, I'm not. I want you to come and enjoy yourself, please.
Please, all you have to do is drink beer,
and then take the trolley down to Exposition Park and go to the longest bar and buy all the beer there.
The longest bar from Exposition Park stretch to Dodger Stadium. Closure.
Oh, you finally learned where it went. One woman asked an employee where she can get water, and he suggested the tap in the ladies' restroom. The Dodgers didn't need to wait long to win a game in their new sticks. The very next day, April 11th, once again against the Cincinnati Reds, they beat them 6-2. I'm very good, huh?
I don't know much about baseball, but I know that 6 is bigger than 2.
Is that how winning works? The numbers have to be bigger.
Yeah.
But golf is different.
No, golf is the same.
When you hit the golf ball, people are going to try to catch it before it gets in the hole.
Well, the greatest goalie in golf history was Michael Jordan. Oh, that's another episode. We'll get into it later.
Yeah. I don't want to spoil it. Many credit the win against the Cincinnati Reds to the pitcher, one of the greatest pitchers the sport has ever seen, Sandy Koufax.
Mike Piazza.
Mike Piazza hit the ball, and Mike Piazza caught it. But not before sending it to second baseman Mike Piazza, who got him out at second, sent it over to first baseman Mike Piazza, and got Mike Piazza out at Mike Piazza
Stadium.
The Mike Piazza Stadium, thank you. Koufax. Sandy Koufax is on the Mount Rushmore of the Dodgers. If they had to send 6 Dodgers to space for an alien knife to understand how the sport was played in Los Angeles, California, Koufax would be in the capsule. Not only a great Dodger, he is one of the most controlled, precise pitchers the game has ever seen. Koufax was born and raised in a Jewish neighborhood in Brooklyn and was signed to the Dodgers at the age... Just like me, born in 1902.
The Jewish immigrants escaping anti-Semitism in the old country.
Living next to Benny Goodman. He was signed to the Dodgers at the age of 19 after a scout house after a scout.
This boy's really fat. We signed him.
We've signed him at a fat camp. It's something about the way he cried. There was a scout saw how fast he could throw at the age of 19, and they signed him really quickly. Sent him directly to the majors. In truth, though, Koufax wasn't particularly fond of baseball. He was a bigger fan of basketball. Could play that very well.
But he was Jewish.
But he was Jewish. He also didn't see himself as a career ball player either of any sport. He actually wanted to be an architect. That sort of modesty runs through Koufax's prime years as a pitcher. He's very soft-spoken. He shied away from the limelight. But on the field, he threw like a monster of a fastball. He wasn't like aggressive. What?
No, I'm just thinking about a Jewish monster. The golem.
The golem didn't speak much, but you were scared of him. He wasn't an aggressive competitor either. He wouldn't like throw to hit batters or anything like that. Like he was just like, I'm going to strike you out. I hope you're okay with that.
Nothing personal.
Nothing personal. I just have to win the game. His early days on the mound were rough because he threw really fast and had no control. His pitches were seen as wild. Then after about like 6 years of this erratic pitching, which wild pitching, 2 wild and crazy pitches. During this period, he like permanently injured his left pitching arm at the
left pitching arm.
I mean, his pitching arm. He's a left-armed man. He has one left arm.
He was the left-armed man. Oh no!
No, he left his arm
in Brooklyn. You're going.
One of the Dodger catchers, Norm Sherry, approached Koufax on a bus trip and quietly coached him on the matter, saying he needed to throw hard to get batters out. As Koufax later put it, once he learned to not try to strike people out, but instead try to make them hit the ball, he gained this like powerful insight into the idea of controlling his pitches, and that was it. That's all he needed.
You gotta control your pitches.
You gotta control your. Where the pitch is at? Right here in your hands, Koufax.
It was in your hand all along, Koufax.
After that, like titan of baseball, for 5 years, he dominated the National League. In 1965, he struck out 382 batters at the plate. But the games weren't easy on him at all because of that elbow injury. Before games, he would apply a massive amount of heat to his elbow. And after the games,
he would climb to the highest volcano.
This is for you, volcano. Because he was like Superman. He had energized with lava. It's the sun and lava are not the same thing. But in my head, in this joke, it's the same thing. Because if you melt the sun, it's lava. That's how volcanoes work.
If I know one thing about this universe, it's that all of Earth's lava comes from the sun.
The sun is dripping at all times into mountains, and the mountains cry lava. Refer to episode Mount Vesuvius.
For all of Greg's conspiracy theories, that secret episode that was quickly taken down because he posted it without me knowing. He recorded in his car late one night.
What's the moon really?
You know who's really in charge of all of Hollywood?
Crickets. So before games, he would apply a massive amount of heat to his arm, and after games, he'd plunge it into ice water, which again could only be agonizing before every game. Yeah. He was also taking painkillers to deal with all of this. So while he was beating all these records, he was struggling to keep up with his well-being. He was far from alone in pushing the Dodgers to successes they saw in the 60s. The other fiery pitcher, the yin to Koufax's yang, was Van Nuys's own Don Drysdale. The Dodgers brought Drysdale aboard in 1956, and from what I'm guessing, he waited here for the team to arrive to get him.
He was the place all the Dodgers stayed when they first came. How many beds do you have?
Van Nuys, how big is Van Nuys? Yeah, we'll all stay there with you. Once he started playing, he remained at the top of the roster for like the next 13 years. He was a very intimidating pitcher. He wasn't like Koufax, like calm and collected. He was very aggressive, intimidating. He wasn't afraid to beam a batter who crowded over the plate. I found a quote in an article from a sports writer named Dave Anderson, and he said of Drysdale, home plate is 17 inches wide, but to Don Drysdale, it is divided into 3 parts. The inside 4 inches, the middle 9 inches, and the outside 4 inches. To him, only the middle part belongs to the hitter. The inside and the outside belongs to the pitcher. Get it?
I gotta get a ruler.
It's a ruler joke. Drysdale set a record for hitting batters during his career, striking a total 152 batters at the plate. He didn't like them. Starting in
152 batters, my God.
Starting in 62 and ending in 66, Koufax and Drysdale dominated the National League and became an unstoppable pitching duo across the entire sport. Together, they set the National League season record for combined teammate strikeouts with 592 strikeouts. No. Take me to Dodger Stadium now. Also, a player who needs mentioning is shortstop Maury Willis, who was like a lightning lightning bolt of a human being. He stole like 104 bases. There's also
and he also stole a bunch of paper clips and staplers from the...
He has like a real problem. Like he cannot stop. It makes him feel good, and it's like a high. There's also center fielder Tommy Davis, who won the batting crown and was like a leader in RBIs, which is the only thing Daniel knows about
There's
baseball.
only one leader in RBIs in this podcast, and it's old me.
Tommy Davis won 2 consecutive batting titles in 62 and 63 and had a lifetime 304 average with the team. His brother, Willie Davis, was another outfielder who was an outstanding hitter. He had a 31-game hitting streak later in that decade. With his team assembled, along with many other greats that came from Brooklyn that a lot of people claim were over the hill, but they still had a lot of good games in them. Gil Hodges, Duke Snyder, Carl Erskine, Pee Wee Reese. With all these people set together, Pee Wee Herman Reese. The Dodgers were set to make West Coast baseball famous.
I know Pee Wee Reese.
Do you?
Well, I don't know him,
but you
I know
of him
because he's the one who one time when Jackie Robinson was still on the Dodgers.
Yes,
back in Dodgertown. They were playing. I don't know where. No, they were playing somewhere, and all these people were yelling all these racist things to Jackie Robinson. Then at the end of the game, Pee Wee Reese came and put his arm around his shoulder to.
That was Pee Wee Reese.
That was Pee Wee Reese.
I didn't know that. I heard that story before, but I didn't know who it was.
Yep.
You know what? I love Pee Wee Reese.
You know what? I love racial equality.
I'm a big fan of it.
Oh my God.
I've sort of always believed in it, you know?
I'm a recent convert. End of episode. Submit this episode to the bodies.
So in 1963, they won the National League pennant, winning 19 games in the final month of the season. They beat the Yankees out to win the World Series there. And again, in 1965, they were world champions, taking the Minnesota Twins for 7 games. So they were just winning all over the 60s.
Wow.
Dodgers were a powerhouse team, but despite this, across the board, baseball players were struggling with their wages since they didn't have a union at the time. In 1946, the major league owners had established a minimum salary of $5,000 a year for players. By 1960,
overpaid.
Get a real job. This is like a side thing. Your dream, isn't it?
It's time to put aside your little hobby and become a welder like the rest of us.
But seriously, like I bet my entire house on it, so you better win. But then in the morning, you got to go back to work. In 1966, 20 years later, it only risen $2,000 more. It was like $7,000 a year for them, which was quite embarrassing. And it was hard for ball players to live on, especially since if you know how the deal we make with athletes is basically like you ruin your body for the love of
our entertainment.
Yeah, for our entertainment, for the love of the game. And when you're done, you're just no more use. You either retire or sink in the leagues.
Yeah.
And
you better hope that you can announce games.
in multiple languages, because we're going to need that. 2 weeks before the 1966 season, Koufax and Drysdale demanded a pay raise from Walter O'Malley. They wanted to be negotiated as a pair, not individually, and through their agent, which was like a new thing at the time. They felt like without their combined efforts on the mound, the Dodgers would sink, so they thought they had a pretty good case. And if you know anything about Walter O'Malley, that made him
happy.
So happy. Nothing a penny pincher loves more than being challenged.
Trust me.
You, Walter O'Malley, and Fred Mertz are all the same person, just different ages. Walter O'Malley refused, stating that baseball was an old-fashioned game with old-fashioned traditions, which is what a way that
an old-fashioned currency value.
Traditions is a great way that rich people always keep people who work in line. O'Malley decided to wait. Tradition.
You make less than me.
Just keep working for no money. Indentured slave's not a dirty word. It's traditional. O'Malley decided to wait the boys out, and unfortunately, that worked. They negotiated for themselves separately for much less than what they originally intended, which sucks.
Cowards.
In 1960s.
These are your heroes. Look behind the curtain, Los Angeles.
Your hero just settled for less money. You really gonna take that? You really gonna buy his jersey?
You're saying you respected him for the way he could play baseball? It's the paycheck, baby. It's all about those money signs.
Dollar signs, cent signs. Ooh. Can we go back to 1966, please?
Finally. The
Let's
country
go back
was so much better.
Doris.
Charles Manson.
Put on your Doris Day nightgown.
Like Doris Day and Night.
The Dodgers had another big year in 1966 as they once again won the National League pennant but lost the World Series to the Orioles.
See, so it is pennant and then World Series.
It is, yeah.
Confirmation.
Right.
Confirmation for something we already settled 40 minutes ago.
I had a good feeling that I had it right, and you questioned me, and I lost all composure.
I have that effect on people.
You're taller than me. I get intimidated.
And I always stand on a book whenever I talk to you.
Greg, where's my book? Oh, I'm sorry, sir. Oh, God. I'm so sorry. Please don't let me not be the co-host anymore. Just a month after that World Series ended against the Orioles, Koufax shocked the world when he announced that he would be retiring at the age of 31. He had chronic
Wow.
I know, he had chronic 31.
You're a year from retirement.
I'm going to shock the world.
I retired earlier than that.
We thought you'd been retired this whole time. Koufax had chronic arthritis in his left arm, and he wanted out before his arm was complete trash. He chose to complete use of his arms over the glory of continuing as an athlete. And in a press conference announcing all this, he stated, "I haven't regretted 1 minute of the last 12 years, but I think I would have regretted 1 year that was too many." God damn it, I respect him. He was later voted Player of the Decade. Good for him.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a vote?
Yeah, it's like MVP and all that stuff.
So they do an official Player of the Decade vote?
It said voted. When I was reading it, they said they voted for him. I didn't vote for it. I would have voted for him.
Yeah, whatever. I wouldn't vote for him. Whatever. He's your MVP, not my MVP.
Listen, I know you're a Drysdale guy because you're aggressive and you want to hit batters. I'm soft-spoken. I'm the J.D. Salinger of baseball. I didn't come up with that. Someone else came up with that. I just remember reading it somewhere.
And that makes me the William Faulkner of baseball.
Drunk and running to the desert. After this point, the Dodgers go through like a bit of a win drought. No fault to Koufax, but very coincidental until the next star comes along 15 years later. Many refer to this era of the Dodgers playing as post-Koufax. On top of that, what? PK. Oh, you played in PK. It was hard. It was a rough time. 1969, Drysdale has to retire due to a torn rotator cuff at the age of 33.
My God, they really tore them apart.
Well, they dominated the league, so I imagine they must have played like every game.
Even the other team's games.
Hey, this is the Montreal Expos. Do you think you can come play a couple games for us?
All right.
Fine.
We'll give you 40 cents.
1970, O'Malley steps aside as the president of the ball club and takes the position of the chairman of the board. His son, Peter O'Malley, is named club president in March of that year. O'Malley's keep it in the family. That's an old saying in baseball. And although the Dodgers were making it to postseason games, they were still never dropping below third in the rankings. It was just this time when management was waiting for promising players to step forward. And the Dodgers had many really good players in that early 70s season. They still had Willie Davis, Tommy Davis. They were still batting really well. There was crazy enthusiasm building over a wave of emerging stars. There's Steve Garvey, Dave Lopes, Willie Crawford, Jimmy Wynn, Bill Russell, Don Sutton, Bill Buckner was on the team. Mike Piazza was still on the team. Why give up one of the best players the sport's ever had, He starts in 1896 as Mike Piazzaberg.
When he had to re-enter the country through Ellis Island, they shortened it to Mike Piazza.
It just looked better on the back of a jersey. He's been number one this entire time. Dodger player number one.
The immortal. And now, taking the field, number infinity sign, Mike Piazza.
The Highlander of baseball.
There can be only one.
Like I was saying, Bill Buckner was on the team. Do you know who Bill Buckner was?
No.
Bill Buckner was the first baseman for the Red Sox that famously pulled the boner during World Series when he lost against the Mets, the one that the ball went under him. When it's
good to have him.
It's good to have him on the team. Yeah, they're really good. My dad's a really big fan of Bill Buckner. Everyone felt really bad for Bill Buckner.
Could you imagine? I mean, that's literally, as a kid, that was my nightmare.
Oh, yeah. Like, I saw my face on Bill Buckner's, under Bill Buckner's hat for like years. Oh, boy.
Everybody relying on you. Mm-hmm. And they already kind of hate you. For some reason, the stars have aligned and you're the one that's deciding everything.
It's so simple. It's just such
a the most embarrassing way.
Yeah, and it's when everyone needs you the most.
And then I turn around and my pants split. And on the back of the pants it says, little squirrel.
Mommy's little squirrel. Have you seen the footage of that? Because once it goes to a certain length, he just stops going after it. And he just stands there like, and that's how I feel all the time. Just standing there like, well,
it's painful.
Well, he was great on the Dodgers.
It only happened 3 more times.
So I read a story about one of my dad's favorite players, outfielder Manny Mota, and I never knew about this story. That in May of 1970, he hit a foul ball that killed a 14-year-old boy named Alan Fish, who was returning to his seat with hot dogs. At Dodger Stadium. The ball was
also one of my nightmares.
The ball was so fast that Fish didn't see it coming, and it struck him on the side of the head, and he was fine at first. They took him to like an aid station. They gave him like 2 aspirins, which was like the greatest surgery.
1970s medicine.
Exactly. And they sent him back to his seat, and he was fine for a while, and as the night went on, he started exhibiting signs of a concussion, so they admitted him to the hospital, and like 4 days later, he died.
Great. So the Dodgers are murderers now. That's horrible.
I found out also he went to the same middle school as I did.
Oh, God, it could have been you.
It was me.
I'm back.
And I'm after Manny Mota. So, but no, seriously, Manny Mota was like crushed after this. Like he never played the same. His rankings dropped after that. Supposedly, the
Dodgers cursed. There's 2 star players that had to retire very young.
Yeah,
one guy kills one.
That broke the curse, unfortunately. Yeah, this was supposedly, as far as I know, the only fatality from an instance like this in baseball. Although in 2002, a girl in Ohio got hit in the head with a puck and died during a hockey game. So that's our bridge.
That's why they have nets now.
Oh, really?
Behind both goals, they have giant nets.
That's a new thing?
Yeah, it's after that girl died. They put those up.
Oh. You went pre-net games, right?
Oh, come on. I went before the water even froze into ice. I was there watching.
It's a California thing. You guys don't understand. We don't have much ice here, except in our mojitos.
Cowabunga, everybody.
So another bummer in the club. In 1972, there was another strike between the players and management that lasted for 10 days before they were able to compromise on a $500,000 increase in pension fund payments, which is a victory, I'm guessing, for ball players. So, game on. So the Dodgers had a really strong team, and by 1974, the team had picked it up again, and fans were really getting behind them. 74 was the year they reached the top, winning the division and posting 102 victories, which was the most by any Dodger team since 1962. That was 12 years, I think. They took the Pirates in the league championship series 3-1, but eventually lost to the Oakland A's Athletics during the final games.
Thank you.
No matter, because the Dodgers were back up, baby. In 1976, the managers since they were in Brooklyn, the one who brought them from like being the Bad News Bears to a good team, Walter Alston, after 23 years was retiring. Stepping up to the plate, the manager plate that is, was Tommy Lasorda. That's when he comes along. Do you have the manager plate?
Yeah, here it is. Let me just blow the...
It took two of us to... Tommy Lasorda, who before that was a third base coach. At first, some claimed that Lasorda was a little unenthusiastic, but he proves himself over time to be one of the best motivators for the Dodgers, not just for the players, but like for the entire city. Funny enough, Frank Sinatra had promised Lasorda he'd sing for opening day as a manager a few years back, and when the day came in 1977, Frank Sinatra sang the national anthem for Lasorda's first game, and for America.
This one's for you, America. And Tommy Lasorda. Unforgettable.
He had to sit right in front of him as he sang to him. I'm gonna cry.
Oh, Frankie.
Oh, Frankie, why? Not in front of everybody. This is my first game. And we never respected him since then. So 77-78 was another instance of like all the right players at the right time coming together. In 76, they lost to the Reds, which was a monster of a team at the time. They were referred to as the Big Red Machine, which were led by the incredibly intense Pete Rose and Johnny Bench.
I feel like for some reason the Cincinnati Reds are like always haunting the Dodgers.
I think the Reds and the Yankees are always like, they're like the two bullies who won't leave the Dodgers alone. And
grow up, guys.
Come on, I'm really good.
It's been 102 years.
Lasorda in 76 made a really bold statement, sort of like Babe Ruth pointing to the stands, that he was going to be able to beat the Red Machine in 77. The boys in blue were going to beat the Big Red Machine. To back him on this claim, very political. So back him on this bold statement, he had a really great lineup. He had Garvey, Say, Lopes, Russell, Marcus Garvey, a very intelligent man. Broke everyone psychologically. They had Dusty Baker, they had Reggie Smith, Jim Brewer, not the one you're thinking about.
Not Goatman?
Not Goatman.
Is that Jim Brewer?
That's Jim Brewer, but not the Jim Brewer we're talking about. It might be. I didn't look it up. How old is Jim Brewer? How old is Mike Piazza? Nobody knows.
Jim Brewer is a satyr, so who knows how old he could be.
And Don Sutton. Don Sutton was a pitcher. It's a really good pitcher. The great motivator that he was, apparently, Lasorda would get Don Rickles to hang out in the Dodgers dugout, and apparently when he did so in uniform, he hung out in uniform. He also went out and supposedly he relieved a pitcher from its duty one time, Elias Sosa, from the mound. Lasorda wrote about that tale later and didn't mention this bit, but Rickles says it happens. It was confirmed from Lasorda that Rickles was a ball boy once or twice.
Interesting, because he always called people a hockey puck.
That's funny. Another bridge. I was watching Don Rickles come out and kind of insulting the Dodgers. I'm like, oh, I bet this will be funny. And then he just does what Don Rickles does. And, sometimes I'm like, I'm not in the mood to watch him be mean to people. He would have made me cry. Well, he's still alive. He could still make me cry. But then I'll always have that scene in Casino where he gets beat with a phone. What?
There's no crying in baseball.
Oh, my God, you're right.
That's going to be a $4,000 fine.
For each tier. So sure enough, Dodgers win pennants back-to-back, 77-78, defeating the Phillies at the league championship games, but losing to them damn Yankees in the World Series. But during all of this, they were breaking records. They made history with 4 members of the same team hit 30 or more home runs. The quartet for this was Garvey with 33, Smith with 32, Say with 30, and Baker with 30. Don Sutton also had a really great decade, winning 166 games, including 21 victories in 1976, which is great. They weren't world champions, but they also weren't a bunch of bums anymore. Probably, I don't know, all that clean air. So the spectacular team of the late 70s moves into the 80s. Walter O'Malley dies in 1979, and ownership of the team is inherited to his son Peter, who is now the club president. The Dodgers finished third that year in the runnings. So now we have the Dodgers of the 80s, and they could be summed up basically by one player who debuted almost accidentally.
Mike Piazza.
They had him for a long time, and they just keep rediscovering him. They just keep every once in a while
reintroducing.
He has the longest trading card I've ever seen because he's been playing for so long.
The trading pamphlet.
The only thing is different is like mutton chops to sandwich.
Flock of seagulls haircut.
Michael Piazza, a new player, debuted pretty much accidentally, or at least not intentionally, on opening day of 1981. The intended pitcher, Jerry Royce, sprained his ankle while jogging a few days before the game. Couldn't play. The other starting pitcher, Bert Hooton, had an ingrown toenail, which could keep you from playing. But there was a lot of faith in this 20-year-old pitcher from Mexico. Nobody in the stands had ever heard of Fernando Valenzuela when he stepped on the mound to pitch. They couldn't even say his name. He was like a chubby Mexican kid with like long hair who calmly walked out there like he was about to pitch for the Mexican League, and people were getting nervous
because they thought he was going to steal their wallet.
He makes me nervous.
I don't know why.
He has a sweetheart face. I just want to pinch his cheeks when I see him. Especially that watching footage of the first game is like, he looks like I would be his friend. He's just, don't mind me. I'm just going to. By the end of the first game, in which he pitched a no-hitter, complete shutout of the Astros, that was the beginning of a decade of Dodger history known as Fernando Mania. The Fernando Nation has spoken. And it wasn't just in Los Angeles. Like, it was all across this fine country. And it was across Mexico, which is another fine country. And even had rumblings in Canada, which is another country. He not only threw with incredible speed, but his like body movements were a little loose, so the batter had no indication of where the ball was going to go. He also threw a screwball, which was, I don't know if it's like a novelty pitch, but it was not common. People didn't know how to hit at a screwball. Hitting a screwball is a joke, which is going to lead me to say something about Desiarnaz, but I won't. I can see why people don't like us, and I get it.
Yeah.
I'm ashamed of myself, really, but I'm not going to stop because I don't know how to stop.
We can't change who we are, people. And if you don't like it, keep listening.
See how bad we get.
Watch two boys self-destruct.
Under the weight of their own ill humor. Many Mexican and Mexican Americans in California had and still had a very strong pride for Valenzuela because Los Angeles is a Mexican city, only it's owned by the United States. And to have such a fantastic player whose English was also not very strong, to have that be your guy, it must have felt really great. You can get behind this guy. There weren't like a lot of Mexican heroes revered in America. And here's this like nonchalant pitcher striking everybody out. It was really neat. Many say that Latino support for the Dodgers, which I'm not sure if you're aware, is very strong. Many say it starts with Valenzuela, or at least like Fernando Mania. Valenzuela was the first player to win the Cy Young Award and the Rookie of the Year in the same season. In 1981, the team had incredible momentum, not just from their fans, but also they had like a really excellent team building this momentum too. Besides Valenzuela, you had Mike Piazza.
Mike Piazza.
You had Mike Piazza split into like an amoeba into two whole Mike Piazzas. You had the heavy hitters still from 77-78. Pedro Guerrero, Reggie Smith still. You had Rick Monday. Once again, the Dodgers and the Yankees square off at the World Series. They go 6 games. And let me tell you, brother, the Dodgers win Game 6, 9-2, becoming world champions in 1981. Boy, are they good. Boy, are they good.
Goodness. What a team.
1985, Valenzuela set a major league record for having the most consecutive innings at the start of a season without allowing an earned run. He pulled off 41 of those, which is incredible, before the Padres ended his winning streak.
Funny that the Padres bring down the locals once again.
Yeah, look at that.
Interesting.
History repeats itself, you know what I mean, guys?
History Mike Piazza's itself.
Padre Mike Piazza.
Padre Piazza.
Padre Piazza, as they call him. So come 1988, which some call the most memorable of the decade, which featured...
I would agree, because I was born that year.
Oh, God. Can my listeners hear me roll my eyes? I'm going to try again. My eyes are very dry because I'm so tired. The 1988 World Series season featured what many people call one of the greatest sports moments in Los Angeles history. One of the greatest moments of World Series history happens in Game 1 World Series against the Oakland Athletics, the A's, if you will. So the Dodgers are down 4-3 in the ninth inning. Kirk Gibson, who couldn't start because of a knee and hamstring injury, was taking batting practice swings, and as Bob Costas puts it in that Ken Burns baseball series, was agonizing after every swing. I don't know if you know this isn't a hockey thing, but you need your feet to swing a bat.
How?
Chimps.
Grab on with all 4.
But they put Gibson in the game anyways. They put him up to bat in the ninth inning, which I don't know if you know is the last inning.
Bottom of the ninth. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, Mike Piazza is on. Mike Davis is on first, and it's just not looking good. Gibson is in obvious pain. Davis manages to still second base, but Gibson is now at the count 3-2, 3 balls, 2 strikes, bottom of the ninth. A's ahead by a single run. High drama. Next pitch, swing, crack, home run. Kirk Gibson makes the hit, only screen
The crack was his spine.
He never got up again.
He couldn't even run around the bases.
Basically, yeah, he hit the home run, and then he limped all the way across the base.
God.
But his face is priceless. He was so happy. Dugout explodes. Everyone's happy. Camera's shaking, and he's just so excited. But he's also like hobbling.
The camera was shaking. What, the camera's happy about this too.
Camera was whoop, whoop, whoop. Our processing. He's like hobbling around, but he, good for Kirk Gibson. He makes like a hit only a screenwriter can come up with. The Dodgers win 4-5, first game of the World Series. But due to his injury, though, that was the last play Gibson would do in that whole World Series. But it was enough. It created enough momentum that would carry them for the rest of the games.
And they won?
They won after 5 games.
1988 is also a big year for hockey in LA. I'll get to that.
LA sports, man.
Again, I was born. The greatest thing to happen to all sports in this city. Old RBI.
But it wasn't just Gibson's homer. It wasn't just Fernando Mania that created the boys in blues through the 80s. Another great player was a pitcher, Oral Hershiser, the Bulldog, as they called him. Hershiser was a phenomenal pitcher, a very intense man who wanted to quit baseball in the minor league, but was continually pushed back into it by his father. Constantly fought with management to stay in games when they wanted him to step down. He is remembered for surpassing Drysdale's record of 58 consecutive scoreless innings. Mike Scioscia was a great catcher for the team, paired well with Valenzuela. Now, there's a player I have to talk about.
Mike Piazza.
And boy, what a hitter. And a catcher. A first baseman, a second baseman, a third baseman, all outfield.
And also the ball.
He was a great audience member. He was a great third baseman coach.
And announcer. And Megatron.
He also turned a hell of a scoreboard. Mike Piazza.
Serve you your Dodger dog. Get you a beer. Buy peanuts from him.
Park your car. Buy a ticket. Talk to Mike Piazza.
Fold down his knees. Sit on him. He's your seat.
Careful, you're stepping on Mike Piazza.
That's all right. He doesn't mind. He's Mike Piazza.
There's a second baseman during this era, late 80s. His name is Steve Sachs. Do you know what a yip is?
A yip. A yip.
A yip is an inexplicable loss of a motor skill, like a mental thing.
I don't know what that is.
It's I
just had a yip, if that's the case.
There's something called the Steve Sax syndrome. Around 1983, Steve Sax became incapable of throwing the ball to first base.
That's strange that he got his own disease.
Lou Gehrig has his own.
Only to baseball players, though.
Like, it'd go anywhere but first base. In all, the 1983 season, he made 30 errors. He could throw it to third base, fine, but he could not throw it to first base. It was a complete mental thing. During a no-hitter, Valenzuela once remarked, "I don't care what happens, just don't hit it to Steve Sax." He was supposedly cured of this in 1989, played for like a couple of years after that. Yep, Steve Sax syndrome. Couldn't throw it to first base.
That's so weird. That's so such a specific thing.
What's weird is, like, there's some names that you just know. I knew Oral Hershiser before I knew anything about him. I knew Mike Scioscia. I also knew Steve Sax, and I thought he was a great player. And I like went to the people I would talk to about this stuff who gave me like not just stats, but like, give me a story about this player. It's like, let's hear a great Steve Sax story, and everyone started laughing like there are none. But after this, after winning the World Series in 1988, they haven't been able to pull it off since, to this day.
Really?
September 2015, they haven't been able to win the World Series.
Drought.
There's drought. What's weird is, like, the Dodgers of the 90s were my team. Like, that's the roster I remember fondly. That's when I would, like, followed every single game. That was, like, the only time I did that. I was, like,
so you're
playing.
familiar with Mike Piazza?
Actually, I am. That's why we get along so well. Remember our first conversation?
Yeah. Hey, nice Mike Piazza shirt.
Hey, are those Mike Piazza brand pants?
Piazza Pantaloonsas?
Are you using your Piazza spatula? I remember this team being, like, the Titans of baseball. Like, I remember thinking, like, these are the greatest players I've ever seen. But reading through, like, the history of this era and, like, glancing at stats, it was a very rocky era.
I'm glad that we both grew up with loving loser teams.
It certainly speaks to our personality.
Yeah. Everyone in LA around our ages, if they grew up liking sports remotely in town, no, that's not true, because Lakers fans, all the Lakers fans now are Wolves of Wall Street and that sort of thing. And look at us, the Dodger and Kings fans are recording a podcast about history.
Were you wearing your Kings hat when you were doing it? Because I was wearing my Dodgers hat when I was doing all the research. So my team growing up, Eric Karros, Raul Mondesi, Hideo Nomo, Ramon Martinez, Dale Strawberry, Brett Butler, and
Steve Yips.
And
I don't know. No one's coming to me.
And
Sandy Koufax came back.
And
Jackie Robinson's back from the grave.
He was still alive at the time. And
what player has been alive forever? I just don't know.
I think Jackie Robinson was dead at this point. And
Mike Piazza.
Oh no, we summoned Mike Piazza.
Hey boys, somebody want to hit a home run? Mike Piazza, can you sign my Kings jersey? Well, no, that's the only thing that can drive me to the grave.
Mike Piazza, can you sign my Mike Piazza trading novel?
Gotta go.
I gotta deliver presents to kids on Christmas. That's right, Mike Piazza.
I'm also Santa Claus.
I hate Mike Piazza.
See you later, Mike. Terrell Strawberry.
In 90 and 91, they finished second in the league, but posted a club record of 99 losses on a plummet to last place in 92. By 93, they managed to struggle to third place and held a third and a half place in 94. Why was it a half? Because yet another player strike in 94 halted baseball, all of baseball. The season was canceled and didn't resume until 1995. The 94 strike really rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. Many people call it like the worst, most embarrassing moment that has ever happened at Major League Baseball. It started over the owners wanting to put a salary cap for the players, which of course upset the players who were putting their bodies through hell to win these games. Through the 70s and 80s, the players were constantly fighting for pay raises and to be released from their clauses, which tied them contractually to a team. They wanted to be their own agents on their own terms and manage their own careers. In 85, the team owners secretly agreed to not sign one another's players. Of course, this conspiracy was uncovered and the players' union sued and won $280 million. Since then, the owners have been trying to find a reasonable salary for the players since they were asking for so much. And on both sides, they couldn't agree to anything really, so the season was shut down. Even in December of 94, President Bill Clinton tried to end the baseball strike and couldn't. The president couldn't end it.
I hereby declare play ball.
A majority of the team owners voted to put out replacement players for teams, and eventually their owners were issued an injunction for locking the players out. So in April of 95, the games resumed, but the damage was already done at this point. Baseball fans were understandably upset over all this. Many put it was like watching millionaires fight billionaires. Like athletes make such an exceeding amount of money.
Names of two minor league baseball teams in LA.
The common baseball fan couldn't relate relate to this. Like they're having like a gold fight. All of this seems so lavish, and attendance was low for that entire season. The Dodgers returned with what I mentioned was a really great team. They set a record mid-decade with 5 consecutive National League rookies that year, starting with Caros, the immortal Piazza, Mondesi, Nomo, and Hollinsworth. Caros and Piazza, I remember, were a really great team together as first baseman and catcher. But their ability to hit was where their real value was. Caros cranked like 20 home runs as a rookie in 92, and Piazza, as a rookie, hit 35 home runs in 1993, along with 112 RBIs. Raul Mondesi also had a really great career with the Dodgers. He stole 30 bases and made 30 home runs under his belt during the 90s. In 1994, we introduced the first South Korean ball player to pitch in the major leagues, Chan-Ho Park. In 96, Tommy Lasorda retired as Dodgers manager, much to the dismay of the fans. He was pretty much forced to retire because of like some medical issues, but he continued on as a great motivational speaker for corporations and agencies. He held his position as manager for like 20 seasons. After him, former Dodger Bill Russell stepped in as a manager for a short time. Some say Lasorda railroaded him into it. Bill Russell was...
I'll tell you something about the railroad.
Bill Russell was also married to like Walter O'Malley's niece or something. In 1998, the O'Malley family, who owned the Dodgers since 1950, sold the team to the Fox Group. And I kept reading that sentence in passing, thinking that it was
Rupert Murdoch?
It took me a while to like get that, but yeah, they sold to the Fox network. Cartoonishly villainous Rupert Murdoch. They paid $311 million. And at this time, if you think about it, in TV sports, Disney had its fangs in the Anaheim Angels
and the Ducks.
And the Ducks, who will both of them will never get an episode.
Oh my goddamn dead body.
Orange County will never be anything. And Time Warner owned the Atlanta Braves. Now,
TBS.
They also own Conan now, which big hugs for Conan. Now, I'm not sure that Murdoch and the Fox were too keen on like America's pastime, but I think that they were interested and they obsessed with America's other pastime, cutthroat capitalism. After Fox Group gets in, they began firing men who spent like many successful decades in the Dodgers organization. Just 3 months into this like new marriage, there's a string of managers that came in and out during this period, none too memorable. A lot of them were kind of shoddy. At the late 90s, early 2000s, really rocky on the team, on the field and in the office. The boys in blue couldn't manage to make it to a single postseason game, hanging around like second or third in their division, winning 90 games only once during this period. Attendance was really low, and it was slipping in the first year under Murdoch. Over their time together, grew only like less than 2% in comparison to O'Malley's last 6 years, where they gained 34% in attendance. After 6 years, Fox dumped the Dodgers onto Frank McCourt in 1994. He was from Boston. He tried to buy the Boston Red Sox, and when he failed, he came after the Dodgers. He bought the Dodgers for $430 million. The team of the 2000s was really strong. The thing was that they didn't have like a blast of talent. Like they were players who were improving steadily. Like you were watching these guys grow.
Fun to watch.
Yeah. You know what? I love a slow simmer. Managing duties were taken up by a guy named Jim Tracy, and new talent, like I said, was emerging. Gary Sheffield, Sean Green, Eric Karros was still around. They were all leading in home runs mid-decade. Karros became the all-time leader from the Dodgers with 221 home runs. Sean Green became the fifth Beatle. You know, he kind of couldn't keep up pace-wise, but he understand what they were going for, like altogether as a group.
Are we still talking about the Beatles?
Yeah, we're still talking about the Beatles. No, he conceptually got the Dodgers.
I see what you guys are doing, but I think it could use a little bit more rock and roll.
I just imagine Sean Green walking up to the plate holding Paul's base.
Immediately getting beamed in the head.
Oh, I see what he's doing. Green became the 5th left-hander in the Major League history to hit at least 49 home runs in a season, and also he hit 40 or more home runs in back-to-back seasons. At this time, we're starting to notice players like Andre Baltry, James Loney, Paul Lo Duca. In 2004, the Dodgers ranked up 93 wins and got themselves the National League West division title, which they couldn't accomplish in 9 years. But just around the corner, the 2005 season was one of their worst seasons since 1992. In 2005, they were 71-91, mostly due to injuries, but they're also like a real strong lack of spirit. In 2008, Joe Torre of the Yankees fame stepped in as manager. No, the enemy. He stepped in as manager and led the team to like a turnaround of success, picking up a loss of 7 games to just fall behind 2 in the end, which is pretty good. Him, along with another former Yankee, Don Mattingly, the both of them started rallying behind the Dodgers and pushing them forward. With Mattingly, they introduced the next big wave of Dodger fandom with slugger Manny Ramirez. I don't know if you remember the hats with dreads hanging down.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that era? They also had Casey Blake, who together made a really strong lineup that was hard to compete with. They were looking as promising as the 77-78 team, and were posting the best record in the league, reaching the postseason for the 3rd time in 4 years, which hadn't happened since 63-66. Around that decade, you had players like Chad Billingsley and Clayton Kershaw begin to emerge as strong players, Andre Ethier, Jonathan Broxton. But after a disappointing 2010 season in which they finished 4th, Joe Torre stepped aside as manager and put Mattingly in position. I've heard some people say that they wish that they had hired in-house for a manager. There's so many like old players that could have got like Dusty Baker or Mike Piazza, manager Mike Piazza, to put himself at the pitcher and the catcher. Under Mattingly, you know, nobody really has a complaint other than that. With him at the helm, they created a really great lineup, but still no World Series since '88. 2011 comes along. The Dodgers went through a ringer when when Frank McCourt and his wife were getting a divorce, and in the middle of their dispute was the ownership of the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
During this,
Magic Johnson
came and saved the day, basically, with the Guggenheim Baseball Management Group, who bought the team for like $2 billion. Before Magic Johnson came and saved the day, the Dodgers were placed in bankruptcy protection. I remember like that period being so weird because before he came along, people were like, "What's gonna happen? What are we gonna do?" They filed for bankruptcy protection, and then like,
is this just gonna solve itself by magic?
Who's gonna save the day? Mike Piazza, and then
not a more old ghoul.
He hasn't seen a dollar bill since 1971, and then like Magic Johnson came along, and everyone's like, "Oh. Oh, all right.
One Dodger dog, please."
So the last couple of years of the gameplay has been really steady with what I consider to be a great team. Clayton Kershaw, Andre Ethier, Justin Turner, Matt Kemp. Kershaw and Kemp have made a great pitching team.
Not as strong as Mike Piazza, though.
I mean, we'll never have anything like Mike Piazza is like the tidal wave. He's like a tsunami. And what's he hitting? The town of Mike Piazza.
Piazza Villa.
Around this time, the latest wave of insane Dodger fandom hit with Yasiel Puig emerged as a ferocious young batter. We're going through a big Puig thing right now, which is fun. Out of nowhere, like he hit at one game and people were like, well, he's the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. They did a little better.
I thought it was Puig.
That's Puig, like league. I got schooled major.
I thought it was
league.
Luig, like Major League Baseball.
Yeah. They did a little better in 2014, a steady incline. They won the National League West Division's title for the second consecutive year. We're seeing new talent making a big name for themselves. Josh Beckett threw a no-hitter. Adrian Gonzalez led the league in RBIs with 116 next to you, old RBI.
Mm-hmm. My record still stands.
Gonzalez tied with Matt Kemp for the club home
That's
run.
You!
Oh my God. I got against Dodger Stadium. He tied with Matt Kemp for the club home run lead with 25 homers. As of today, there's a shortstop, number 12, Corey Seager. This is the third consecutive year we've made the postseason, and Seager has barely started playing, but there's a lot of confidence in him. He made his first career home run earlier this month, and closer to the time of this recording, has hit 2 home runs against the Pirates in like 1 game. Sadly, though, it was announced recently that Vince Scully's last year as the voice of Los Angeles Dodgers is going to be this year. He's
now that means something to me.
Because he's 87.
Don't forget.
It's such a sad thing because he really, like, I don't know if you are listening from Los Angeles, we refer to him as the voice of the summer, and it's kind of true. Like, he has like a definitive voice. Special shout outs to some unsung heroes. I'm gonna finally clear up the organist, Mike Piazza. The lady's playing the organ for the games. The first one was Gladys Gooding. The second one was Helen Dow, and the current one being Nancy B. Heffley, who is you can follow her on Twitter.
Nancy certainly B. Heffley.
Nancy B, like Aunt B. Nancy BEA at Nancy B. Longtime Dodger Stadium PA announcer Eric Smith, who was also announcer for the Clippers and the USC games at the Coliseum, stepped down in April of this year and is being replaced by Todd Leitz. Before Smith, there was John Ramsey, who held the position for a very long time, announcing for the Raiders and the Rams as well as the Kings and the Lakers. He died, unfortunately, in 1990 from complications due to diabetes. What is his name again? John Ramsey. I've mentioned that I live like very close to Dodger Stadium. I spent most of my life around there. When I was like
Greg, don't give him too much information.
I don't want you to know where I live. I saw Ramon Martinez once at the old Pioneer Market, which is Sunset and Echo Park, where the Walgreens is now. I had no idea who he was, and my uncle's like, you shake his hand right now. My dad has seen like Andre Ethier walking down the street and been like, you better bat better next time. Living close to the stadium, you kind of feel when Dodger enthusiasm is waning. Like, they're like, Dodger fans are finicky, but you get such a strong sense when no one cares about our bums, and they are our bums now. We grew up with them. But these last few years, there's such an intense and unbreakable sense of community, and I also credit a lot of that with the explosion of social media, because now we have new ways of expressing our love for the team. Now we can all take pictures of ourselves at the stadium. We post our favorite things.
We can leave racist comments in the message boards.
Whatever, any race whatsoever, I don't care. And it's really cool because not only do they like the Dodgers, they like Vince Scully. You get to know the name of the organist. You get to know the name of the people who clean the field now. It's a really neat thing that's going on. Now I'm going to leave the listeners with an inside secret. If you want to see the field in the stadium on a non-game day, drive up to the gate on Park Drive and say you want to buy something from the Dodger Gift Shop, which is usually open off-season, and you go up there and hang out and check out the seats. Take a look. Take a couple pictures.
Send them to us. Send us your best trespassing photos.
Yeah, and get as low as you can before someone stops you.
And if you can, leave a little stick of dynamite right under third base.
And an L.A. Meekley sticker on home plate.
Print out your own L.A. Meekley sticker. Leave one on every single seat. That's all she wrote. She being baseball.
It's a very feminine sport because it's understanding and not mean to anybody.